Thank you guys for joining me today, and nice to meet you. If I haven't met you already, I'm Jessica, and I would like to share some personal experiences and learnings with you today about these three things. So before I go into the talk, I really like to share a little bit about my story. I'm originally from Taiwan. I came to the US to pursue my master's degree in 2011. It was a costly art degree for an average family like mine in Taiwan. It was also a very demanding program, but I stuck it through. After graduating in 2014, I immediately started working in the entertainment industry like I had planned and wanted. However, the first year into my nearly 5-year career as a concept designer, I already knew by then that it was nothing like I had imagined. I lingered for another 4 years because of sunken cost fallacy. Also, I just wanted to prove my instinct wrong. Unfortunately, my instinct was right, and I hated my day-to-day work. I finally made a hard decision to change my career in 2019, the best decision I have made in my life, but it was still not enough. By then, all the rose-colored tint on my glasses were gone. I no longer saw the sparkles of entertainment industry like an outsider would. When I finally got out of the industry for good in 2020, that's when I joined Avenue Code, I felt my life was renewed. And that's a long-winded backdrop story for my talk today. To start, I would like to share a common life pattern to illustrate the deceivingly obvious, but in fact tricky relationships between emotional intelligence, mental health, and career growth. Then I would like to explain why it's important to really understand the relationship between these three subjects. So some of you might assume that emotional intelligence results in better mental health and promotes better career success. What I have learned so far is that while such assumption is not incorrect, it also does not show the whole picture. At an international company like Avenue Code, many of you may have a similar experience. People around you and also yourself have a high expectation of you. It can be because you showed a lot of potential and strong motivation when you were young. That kind of passion of, I can achieve goals if I give effort, continues into our adulthood. And naturally, we feel the urge to prove that statement true. Well, such a passion is not a bad thing in and of itself. Obsession over the outcomes which we expect this passion to produce is. So during a self-review to achieve my career goals, I identified a much needed area of improvement, that is, interpersonal skills and high emotional intelligence. Because I was so desperate to prove that I could do anything if I put my mind to it, I studied with force, believing that strong will and laser focus would lead me to anywhere I wish to go. Ironically, the same strong urge I had for achieving goals became a double-edged sword when I tried to learn how to be more flexible and strategic. I didn't catch myself going down a narrow path which would eventually throw me into a loop, just like Sisyphus forever pushing the boulder, just having it roll down all over again. There are 3 common models of emotional intelligence. Here, I would like to use Goleman's model for its popularity. This model by Daniel Goleman first appeared in his classic book, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ, published in 1995. So you can see the 4 quadrants that constitute Goleman's idea of emotional intelligence. Personal recognition to the upper left corner leads to self-awareness. Self-regulation to the upper right corner leads to self-management. Social recognition to the lower left corner leads to social awareness. And finally, social regulation to the lower right corner results in relationship management. Because I only wanted the outcomes of gaining the skills of emotional intelligence, my study was limited to the social benefits which emotional intelligence can result in. However, I didn't pay too much attention on what actually contribute to these abilities of relationship management. Repeatedly, I was confused and frustrated when I couldn't behave accordingly, even though I intellectually knew what I should be doing. I couldn't handle conflicts effectively because my resentment would get so strong that I couldn't force myself to act vulnerable. The best I could do was to remain silent, which was not resolving anything, if not making things worse. Moreover, I also couldn't shake off my resentment due to all the negligence I had been doing up until the point of conflict. I didn't know how to stop feeling hurt, so I would simply numb myself again and again after being shut down, rejected without reasons, and other unpleasant experiences. I would wish that my buried anger would just go away by telling myself to wise up. A classic example of doing the same thing over and over while wishing for a different outcome. As an INFP personality type, I have no problem feeling other people's emotions or articulating what I feel if I'm asked. But for some reason, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't manage my emotions and consequently my work relationships, even though I knew exactly what I was feeling and why. The 4 quadrants here might mislead you to think that they all hold equal weights. However, from my personal experiences, I believe that without developing these 3 areas first, self-awareness, self-management, and social awareness, it's almost impossible to maintain consistent, healthy relationships, be it work or personal. I would even go ahead and argue that without self-awareness and self-management, it would be very difficult to have a healthy social awareness. Everything about emotional intelligence I have learned so far builds upon a clear, stable, and generally positive sense of self. I do want to call out that I said generally positive, not always positive. If you force yourself to be positive all the time, it gets into the realm of toxic positivity. It's worse than having conflicts because toxic positivity exacerbates the resentment and intensify the eventual blow up. So realizing how the self-competence builds up the social competence led me to see how this fundamental structure of emotional intelligence connects to mental health. According to WHO, mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables us to achieve many things in life. It's considered an integral component that underpins our abilities to make good decisions as individuals and as a collective. And if you break down the description and put the paragraphs side by side with Goleman's model, you'll begin to see the matching patterns here. To cope with stresses in life, we need to understand what triggers and what soothes us. We need to understand what we are feeling and why. We need to handle changes with flexibility. To learn, work, and contribute to our community well, we need to hold impulses and behave appropriately and considerately. To actualize our potential, we need to get back up after being knocked down. We also need to believe that we have the ability to get it back up again and again. Similarly, you can see how it is important to be able to hear what other people are really saying in order for us to make good decisions, or even arrive at a common ground to make any sort of decisions as individuals and as a collective. The end goal of mental well-being is that we, as human race, can shape our world in a good direction. But without mutual reciprocity, it is simply not possible. The frameworks of emotional intelligence are attempts by psychologists to help us reach that end goal of making mutually beneficial decisions together. Hopefully, by this point, one thing is very clear to you as much as it was to me. That is, while higher emotional intelligence can increase, but not guarantee, the possibility of better career growth, it builds upon caring and prioritizing what emotional intelligence roots in, not what we think we can use it for. As ironic and paradoxical as it was, this realization helped set me free from the shackles of self-criticism. I realized that it was not me or my learning ability that had problems, but my approach and intention. I cannot change who I am, nor my IQ, but I can certainly change my approach and intention. However, it was indeed a little disappointing to know that the skills of emotional intelligence guaranteed nothing, nor were they directly related to better career growth. There simply might have been a higher correlation between career success and higher emotional intelligence in some industries and professions, not even most industries and professions. Not sure if it was fortunate or ironic, but I was so burned out at that point in my life. If I had to choose between feeling better or getting ahead, I would choose feeling better. My priorities had shifted by then after all the self-inflicted suffering. So I was finally ready for the real learning of emotional intelligence. From there, I started my journey of self-care and self-exploration. And if you are still with me, I would like to share some lessons that I have learned so far. The most important thing, which I wish I had accepted earlier in my journey, was that we need to care about our emotions. However, before going into what this means, I do want to clearly define what kind of caring I'm referring to here. In my experiences, there are two kinds of caring. The first kind is filled with love and makes us want to sympathize and help. The second kind is filled with criticism, shame, and fear. It makes us want to push down, vilify, or get rid of the things that we care too much about. The second kind of caring encourages us to victimize ourselves so we can focus on the villains outside instead of facing ourselves inside. You can see why the second kind of caring can lead us doing things that the first kind of caring would not want. The caring I'm referring to in the statement, I care about my emotions, is the first kind, the kind that's filled with love and sympathy. The first kind of caring leads us to believe that our emotions are meaningful to us. They are things that can help us if we pay attention to them. This kind of caring also allows us to acknowledge our emotions as is, not as what we think they should be. Lying about or shaming how we really feel is the simplest thing we can do to betray ourselves. If we cannot trust even ourselves, feel safe with ourselves, who else or what else can we even trust? On top of caring about our emotions, we also need to care about us, the ones who are doing the feeling. It means that we recognize and respect our limits. When we feel that we can't take it anymore, we learn to protect ourselves. We take a pause or walk away. We stop the stick that keeps hitting us. That's when we know that we have learned the lesson. We also honor what our emotions are trying to tell us. Who are we? What do we value? What are the things that we cannot tolerate? What's causing us feeling certain ways? Are we healthy? Is our environment healthy? Is there anything that needs to be changed? And remember, we don't lie about our answers. Furthermore, don't wait until someone else asks us how we feel. Be proactive and ask ourselves. Otherwise, our emotions would forever stay in shapeless shadows and continue haunting us. If we can use words to capture our emotions, to describe them, pinpoint them, we shine lights on them and give them clarity, so they can stop lurking in the back of our minds and in our dreams, so they can change from incoherent ideas to comprehensible topics, which we can then address. In addition to clarifying our emotions, it would help tremendously for us to reflect on why we felt certain ways. Did we feel that way naturally? Or did we feel that way because if we did not, we were not normal, good, grateful, mature, or smart? It's very important to distinguish which opinions in our head come from whom. As we are on this journey, there will be times when we just couldn't manage our emotions. During those moments, instead of beating ourselves up with frustration, we can ask ourselves, what's the worst thing that could happen if we just let our emotions be for a little while? How long would it be before it becomes not okay to keep feeling certain ways? Do we have a sense of where the line draws between healthy and unhealthy? How can we cultivate it? Be curious about where our limits are. It helps us better prevent unwanted meltdowns. Funny enough, when we finally learn to empathize and respect ourselves, we find ourselves doing the same things for others more naturally. How do we keep doing it though? Well, life is all good and dandy. It's easy to keep it up. But how about when we encounter setbacks, trauma, hardships, and losses? How do we recover from there? That's where maintaining a healthy and resilient system comes in. Sticking to these good habits might not provide immediate gratification, nor shortcuts to higher social status or financial wealth. However, without them, we become fragile and break down easily when life inevitably challenges us. From my experiences so far, I concluded that there are three essential categories of habits that lay the foundation of a resilient mental well-being. The first category is carving out time and space for ourselves to be completely judgment-free. It means no critiques, not even the constructive ones. Simply observe and be curious. No predefined interpretations, no goals. Many people use meditation to go into such mental state. I personally couldn't stick to meditation consistently, so I vary up my options. I find time to just do silly things that serve no concrete purposes. I played with filters on Instagram. I drew ugly sketches of stories in my imagination. I made flimsy, dry flowered home decor. I did all those things because the process made me happy and laugh, not because what I could get out of the activities. If you care more about the outcomes, no matter what you do, it's not playing anymore. I also stopped calling myself lazy or criticizing myself for not being productive when I just wanted to lie down or stare into the ocean for an afternoon. I now understand that it was a signal from my brain or body that I needed rest, and it would be unwise to go against our internal technician when it's telling us that our fuel is low. By stepping back and simply observe myself, I now become less reactive. I now have more space between the moment I feel and the moment I do something about it. There is enough space for me to sit down and journal so I can sort through the entangled opinions from different sources until I come to something I personally believe in. If my emotions did unfortunately become unmanageable, like they still do, instead of rubbing salt in the wound with hurtful self-talks, I use the incident as a learning opportunity to prevent future similar events. I would break down the incident like a detective. Who was there? Where was it? What happened? How did the situation set me off? Why was the situation overwhelming to me? So now I'm in the position of the detective, rather than the suspect or the victim. The only goal for me now is simply uncovering the truth, not pointing fingers. The second group of habits I have found useful is drawing a clear line between me and others. It sounds selfish and even antisocial to some people. However, being an empath, I have learned through the hard way that without a clear boundary that marks where the outer world ends and where I begin, I would drown in chaos and lose my ability of self-awareness. After all, if others are me and I am others, where is the self to be aware of to even begin with? We need to discern what behaviors and words violate us, cross the line, so we know when it's time to stand up for ourselves or let go, get out, and move on. Sometimes it's not even other people that hurt us, but ourselves, by obsessing over a different outcome, which would only happen if we fundamentally change to a different person who is not us. As you can see, without knowing what belongs to us and what belongs to others, we won't even know why we are hurting, let alone what to do to address the hurt. Last but not least, love and hope. This is a category that I didn't want to admit for the longest time, but the most vital to a resilient mental well-being. I used to want to be ruthlessly self-sufficient and undependent. I thought only through self-exile could I find lasting freedom away from conventional expectations. Little did I know, I simply escaped from one cage to another. Trapped in loneliness, my isolation eventually hollowed out my support network. And just like a castaway stranded on an island, when I was desperate for emotional support, my loved ones either had become estranged or no longer with me. It took me a series of losses for me to realize that some hard decisions needed to be made to keep the people I want in my life. With all the losses and heartaches, it's easy to completely discount the good in life. However, forgetting what's good in life doesn't make living any less effortful. It simply shifted our effort from trying to resentment to get out of self-pity. The quickest way many people have found is by reminding ourselves how far along we have come, how our possessions and support network sustain us through the hard times, how we made through the dark hours and finally saw the light at the end of the tunnels. It means a lot coming from a person like me who fundamentally doubts about the existence of higher power, that I do believe the universe has something larger to offer, whether we, as insignificant as mere human, can recognize it or not. Do you know, particles, the smallest elements of the universe, are actually just strings vibrating, which results in different combinations of energy, also known as the string theory. Everything is energy. Pick whichever theory, school of philosophy, or religion that resonates with you the most. But my advice would be, do pick one that uplifts you as opposed to one that puts you down. There's immense benefit in training our skills of emotional intelligence. But just like any worthy quest, the process is where the fortune lies, not the destination. We can only understand the true values of emotional intelligence when we practice it as part of our life, of our daily habits, of our way of thinking. Emotional intelligence is about living a satisfying life, and life is about a journey of learning to take up and to let go. May we journey in grace. If you are interested in learning more about mental health, emotional intelligence, you can find more resources here. And thank you so much for listening to my talk today. I hope you find it helpful, even just a little bit. And that's it.